Her back hit the brick wall so hard it knocked the Bible from her hands. A white police officer's grip tightened around her neck as bystanders screamed, phones raised, capturing every second of horror. Just feet away, her husband sprinted toward the scene, but would he make it in time? Would anyone? In less than 10 minutes, the peaceful afternoon spiraled into a public nightmare that would rock the entire city. This isn't just another story of injustice, the moment when silence broke. Welcome, story lovers. Where are you watching from? Comment your city below. Margaret Louis was the kind of woman everyone in the neighborhood knew by name. A retired school teacher with silver hair and a soft voice, she spent her mornings tending her garden and her Sundays leading a Bible study at the local church. That afternoon she wore her favorite gray suit and carried her leather-bound Bible close, heading to a church meeting just a few blocks away. The sun was warm, the streets calm, everything felt as ordinary as it always had. She smiled and greeted a young couple passing by, never imagining that danger was just around the corner. Across the street, a police cruiser idled, its engine rumbling low. Inside, a man watched her too long, too hard. But Margaret kept walking, unaware that in just a few steps her dignity and safety would be viciously ripped from her. And all because of the color of her skin. Wait a second. If you enjoy this story, please support us by clicking the like button. We'd also love to know, comment below and tell us which city you're watching from. If you'd like to see Margaret turn the corner, just a few steps from the church entrance, when the cruiser pulled up beside her. The officer, broad-shouldered, white, and visibly tense, stepped out and barked, "You there!" "Stop!" Confused, she paused. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked gently, clutching her Bible tighter. He didn't answer. His eyes were hard, suspicious. To him, Margaret's calm presence and respectable dress meant nothing. All he saw was a black woman near a government building. Without warning, he lunged. His hand wrapped around her throat and slammed her against the cold brick wall. The Bible slipped from her hands and hit the pavement with a hollow thud. Passers-by gasped. One woman screamed. Margaret's fingers clawed at his arm, her eyes wide. With terror, struggling for breath, she tried to speak, to plead, but the officer's grip only tightened. "Resisting, huh?" he muttered through gritted teeth, loud enough for people to hear. A small crowd began to gather, frozen between fear and outrage. Phones came out. Someone yelled, "Let her go!" But the officer didn't flinch. It wasn't until an older black man sprinted from the far end of the street, roaring her name, that the cop's grip loosened. The man was her husband. And what he did next would shock everyone, including the officer. Margaret gasped as the officer's grip returned, shaking, angry, desperate to reassert control. But her husband, James, wasn't stopping. He threw himself between them, forcing the officer back. "She's my wife," he shouted, his voice raw with fury and fear. The officer stumbled, then reached for his weapon. Gasps exploded from the crowd. James raised both hands, trembling but defiant. "You're not going to kill her, and you're not going to kill me," a child cried in the background. A woman sobbed. Then came the sirens. Backup had arrived, but this time, they weren't on the aggressor's side. Cell phones had captured everything. The officer looked around, suddenly aware that this wasn't going away. And as Margaret collapsed into James's arms, the officer stood frozen. Would justice finally speak? Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like, it really helps. The officer was arrested on the spot thanks to the overwhelming footage and witness accounts. Margaret spent the night in the hospital, her throat bruised but her spirit unbroken. James stayed by her side, holding her hand, vowing that this would not be buried or ignored. Within days, headlines erupted, protests formed, and legal action followed. But for Margaret, the real wound wasn't just physical, it was the cruel reminder that even dignity, faith, and a lifetime of good couldn't shield her from hate. Her story became a symbol, not of defeat but of resistance. Because silence is no longer an option. The real question is, how many more Margarets will it take before justice isn't rare but expected? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.